This is my training program for the Pregnancy Support Center in Salisbury, North Carolina, by Sean Bethay on September 21st, 2018. First, with the needs assessment for the Pregnancy Support Center, this introduction will include the overview, the interviews I had, my staff observations, as well as the initial needs assessment. I had multiple interviews with Sherry Evans, who is the executive director. She also happens to be a friend of mine in our networking group. So we had many discussions on, the budget as well as training methods, how the organization came to be as a 501c3. And then later I had a second interview as well as a walkthrough of the facility with the center director, who's also the trainer, named Elizabeth Gentry. Now, the biggest thing that I saw with their particular organization is they have a great mission in being available to mothers, typically ages 19 to 25, but of course there are some younger and there are actually some very much older as new mothers. But they provide an outlet from a pro-life standpoint for mothers to consider other options to keep their child. The biggest thing that I saw from a needs assessment was that they train everyone very well, but of course there's always room for improvement. So I want to discuss some of the other people that work there, because there are actually 6 on staff, the 2 directors that I mentioned first. Then we have Robin, who is the director of client services, which is primarily all the donations and things of that nature. Heather, who is the nurse, and she's also the sonographer and does the ultrasounds. I'll explain more of that later. And then there's Erica, who's the director of development for all the programs that they have. And then you have Gina, who is the receptionist and who is also one of the trainers. As a matter of fact, they're all pretty much cross-trained to do multiple methods of training for the organization. During my tour of the facility, what I saw was an enormous outreach of information, be it videos, be it manuals, and also multiple classrooms, as well as counseling areas for the mothers. And that was very beneficial. There's also, of course, room for all the supplies, that a mother would need. But when I got down to the initial needs assessment, which was really about technology, besides the ultrasound equipment, the brand new ultrasound equipment that they had, what I also saw was that more people were actually needed in terms of a needs assessment for them to go forward. And 2 that I'll speak on quite a bit during this presentation would be a male entity that is needed, as well as a communications or social media person. The next area is the analysis of the needs assessments. This will deal with the staff lessons learned, which will be primarily what they use are videos, training manuals, as well as the manuals that they use to actually train the employees as well as the volunteers, because they have to go through a specific training with that in order to work with the mothers. And then, of course, there's a great mentoring program that they have there. What I saw was, again, the classroom style setting is very conducive for the mothers. But the staff learns best really with 3 ways. First, as I mentioned, there is a manual, and it's a pro-life manual that speaks on the teachings, of course, of Christ, but also the importance of why a mother wants to keep a child and why the family is important. The next thing that they have, besides that type of manual, then they have, of course, manuals that the mothers can actually review and read up on, as well as the employees have additional manuals and the employee handbook. Then there's, of course, the volunteers, who they have a very good structure of volunteers that come in, and they, of course, have different challenges because some only want to do certain things, whether it be, donate their time, work on fundraisers, but you also have a core group of about 8 to 10 who come on a regular basis that work with the mothers, and they also go through this specific type of training. And then, of course, what really sets them apart is the mentoring that they have. This mentoring program is one where they go into a classroom and they learn from each other how to do trainings. Perfect example, as I talked to the receptionist with the center director, Elizabeth Gentry, she was telling me how when Gina came in, Gina was a receptionist for quite a while, and then she opted to volunteer to want to become a trainer. So their method is to actually take her to the classroom, let her watch other people a few times. Then they take her into another room and go through that same type presentation to give her pointers on what she is doing well and what she's not doing well. And then they allow her in front of the class, and of course she gets feedback until she's well enough to do those type things on their own. So they have a great transfer of training with their particular program. The constraints of this model, though, is that it's only the videos, it's only the manuals, and it's only the mentoring. So technology hasn't been a huge thing that they've used, and this is what we will discuss later. Of course, the audience is of course the 4 other staff members besides Elizabeth and Sherry, the clients, who are the mothers, and then there's also the volunteers, and I'm speaking directly about the ones who deal with training. In short, they follow a near transfer method for their trainees, since it's all done in-house and they're able to immediately relay it to what it is that they do. In the design phase, we will cover the objectives of their training program, the projected model that I discussed that they may want to use, what would success look like for them, how do they measure success, and then what type of behavioral outcomes does this type of training provide. And so from an objective training program standpoint, they assist the client. They have a mission, which they perform very well with, the mission being to assist as many mothers that come to them so that they can in turn assist other mothers as well as the community, and this allows them to have donations. But what is lacking as part of a training program? Well, the things that are lacking are the parts that go into what I call the projected model. The projected model should be, from a technology standpoint, maybe should consider podcasts, webcasts, social media, a discussion board or chat rooms, as well as mobile learning on their cell phones. So what does success look like? Well, traditional methods that they're using are great, but I think they can enhance it so much more by becoming more modern, since the pregnant mothers are on average 19 to 25, as I mentioned earlier, and therefore technology driven. The other form of success that would be helpful is how can they find a male staff person who can train, because his primary benefit would be to how to help those men who are fathers and husbands become more beneficial to the family unit. And some of this would have to be done after hours, since most people are at work, but more importantly, how technology could assist with that. So what does measuring success consist of? Well, there's a budget criteria, and the budget I would recommend is to have a part-time person as well as that male person. The part-time person, of course, will be paid from the grants as well as the overages in their fundraisers that they currently have. And the return on investment will be the social media engaging the clients, both past and present, as well as the community. They also would be able to use these podcasts and webcasts because there's easy access to them. They won't be as confusing to use like a video and bulky and take it home, where they can just access it online. And the same thing could be for the classrooms trainings that they have. And then finally, the behavioral outcomes include the cognitive form, which is the mentoring approach they're already using, and the affective type outcome, which is their customer service orientation, i.e. the way they assist the mothers. In the development phase, I had a great discussion with the executive director on my suggested ideas. And actually, she was in agreement for the most part with the things that I said. But she said we have to address those things in terms of cost, when they could be implemented, and whether or not the return on investment would be really worth it. And I did understand and respect that decision. In the implementation phase, that's basically the four main ideas I presented. Hiring a part-time person at first who will focus strictly on the social media aspect of what it is that they need to do to get the word out. They have a Facebook page, but it's mostly informational right now. So I would suggest, having a Twitter account, as well as other forms, including the discussion board and the chat room, to be able to have that manned, to have real-time discussions with those mothers who, maybe dealing with something, and they want to have somebody right then and there to be able to call. Of course, the male staff person, that's another whole different salary that they would have to add to their budget. But within let's say a reasonable amount of time, within a year, they could look at adding a male staff person who could assist in training those other men and fathers to be able to assist their girlfriend or wife to be able to have a greater family unit and understand the purpose of why they should keep the child. And then, of course, the podcast and the webcast can be done by Elizabeth Gentry or Sherry, since they are the top trainers, and go over the information and take some of it from the different videos and be able to have this into a library that people can access either at home, by phone, or whatever the case may be. So these are my suggestions for the implementation phase. In the evaluation phase, this gets to the final comments that I had with the executive director, Sherry Evans. And she mentioned these comments to me both a while ago, as well as when I followed back up with her about if we implement these type new strategies and things. And she said, Sean, what I've learned in time is that I've got to learn how to pace what it is I'm going to strategize, because it's not just about putting new ideas out there. Because sometimes the best return on investment is to wait for the implementation at the right time with the right form of training, whether that be the addition of staff or with new technologies. And I have to respect that. So the challenges to overcome will be that she and Elizabeth will have to work on the new ways of doing the podcast and webcast and implement that library, as well as the lessons that are learned. And when they transfer the commitment to a client by the mother, this will increase a family success from a technological standpoint. And what I mean by that is a lot of what they do is based on having a successful staff, because they're committed to the mission. And when they're committed to the mission, they're also committed to having the mothers succeed. So finally, my final comments are, this needs assessment and training program is a blueprint to assist the Pregnancy Support Center in meeting the needs of their clients with being more connected to the agency. It is also how to train the staff and the dedicated volunteers to continue the growth of the individual and the impact on outreach it will have on the community. Thank you.